Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. Many controversies surround the history of the enigmatic land of Canaan. Have you ever wondered who Canaan was and what his true origin was? Who was his father? And, more importantly, who were the first inhabitants of this land before the arrival of the Israelites? What few people know is that, long before being conquered, Canaan was already home to a powerful and mysterious civilization, the Canaanites. Who were these people? What was their culture, their beliefs, and their connection to the great events of antiquity? Prepare for a fascinating journey through time and the hidden history of Canaan. If you enjoy this type of content, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming ones. Canaan, the son of Ham, and the Canaanites. Canaan, a name that has crossed centuries wrapped in mystery, disputes, and profound meanings. But what do we really know about this ancient land and its importance to the history of humanity? Historically, Canaan corresponds to a vast region that today encompasses the territory of modern-day Israel, including the Golan Heights, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank. Additionally, it extended through parts of Jordan, covering a strip along the eastern shore of the Jordan River, as well as Lebanon and portions of the southern coast of Syria. This extensive geographic area is mentioned in various historical records and sacred texts, such as the biblical books of Numbers 34:1-15 and Deuteronomy 3:8, which detail its borders and significance to the peoples of the time. The name Canaan and the term Canaanites appear in ancient documents from different civilizations, including cuneiform texts from Mesopotamia, Egyptian records, and Phoenician writings. Interestingly, the inhabitants of the region themselves identified as Canaanites, traditionally believed to be descendants of Ham, the son of Noah, according to biblical accounts. Mentions of Canaan are not recent. The earliest records date back to around 1500 BC, over 3,500 years ago. However, it was only in 1928, with the rediscovery of the city-state of Ugarit, that researchers were able to take a closer look at the culture, religion, and social organization of the ancient Canaanites. Archaeological excavations in this important city revealed a rich collection of texts written on clay tablets, detailed myths, and religious traditions that not only shaped the cultural identity of the region, but also influenced later civilizations, including the Hebrews and the Phoenicians. The discovery of Ugarit helped clarify the beliefs, practices, and daily life of the inhabitants of Canaan, offering a fascinating glimpse into the complex historical web that makes up this enigmatic land. In the Bible, Canaan is not only the name of an ancient land, but also the name of a character in the Old Testament, involved in one of the most intriguing and controversial episodes in the Scriptures. Who was Canaan, and why is his name tied to a curse that would affect generations? Canaan was the son of Ham and the grandson of Noah. According to the book of Genesis, all the Canaanite peoples descended from him. If we trace his lineage from the creation of man, he would be the 12th generation after Adam. Adam, Seth, Enosh, Canaan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, Noah, Ham, Canaan. However, the story of Canaan takes a dark turn after the flood. The Bible tells that in a moment of drunkenness, Noah lay naked inside his tent. Ham, his son, saw his father's nakedness and, instead of acting respectfully, exposed the situation disrespectfully to his brothers, Shem and Japheth. These, in turn, showed reverence by covering Noah without looking at him. When Noah woke up and became aware of what had happened, he did not curse Ham, but rather his youngest son, Canaan. This detail has sparked various interpretations, as many assume the curse fell on Ham. However, in ancient times, one way of punishing someone was to curse their descendants, especially the youngest son, who traditionally held a more vulnerable position in the family structure. Noah's sentence was harsh. Canaan and his descendants would be servants to their brothers. From this lineage came the Canaanite peoples, known for their idolatrous practices, human sacrifice rituals, and customs considered abominable in the eyes of God. Later, this nation would come into direct conflict with the Hebrews, who saw Canaan as a promised land, but inhabited by peoples far from God's will. Thus, the figure of Canaan transcends that of a mere biblical character. He became a symbol of a lineage marked by challenges, condemnations, and spiritual confrontations that would echo throughout the entire Old Testament narrative. The Canaanites settled in the region that today encompasses Canaan and Lebanon, preserving their traditions and beliefs for centuries. But what was the true meaning of the curse that fell upon Canaan? And how did it influence the destiny of the peoples of the region? Many people believe that all the sons of Ham were cursed, but this is a mistaken interpretation. The Bible is clear in stating that the curse fell exclusively upon Canaan, not upon his brothers. Throughout history, some interpreters of Scripture have used this episode to support the idea that African peoples were cursed. However, this view is not supported by the biblical records or historical facts. African peoples do not descend from Canaan, but from the other sons of Ham, Mizraim, Cush, and Put. While Canaan and his descendants were mentioned in the context of the curse, his brothers received blessings and gave rise to great civilizations. Cush, for example, was the ancestor of the Ethiopians and the peoples of southern Arabia, while Mizraim is linked to the foundation of Egypt. These genealogical distinctions are clearly recorded in the book of Genesis, chapter 9. Even under the shadow of the curse, the lineage of Canaan played a significant role in biblical history. One of the most notable examples is Rahab, the Canaanite woman who, by helping the Hebrew spies in Jericho, became part of the messianic lineage, being a direct ancestor of Jesus Christ. This fact highlights one of the great themes of faith. God's grace can manifest regardless of a person's origin, transforming destinies and fulfilling his divine purpose. Thus, the curse of Canaan should not be seen as an eternal burden upon his descendants, but as a specific episode within the biblical and historical context. The name Canaan has deep roots in the ancient languages of the Canaanites and Phoenicians, deriving from the term Canaan, which can mean purple, in reference to the famous dye extracted from the murex shell, a trademark of Phoenician trade. Alternatively, the name can also be interpreted as lowlands, alluding to the geography of the region, or as a term identifying the Canaanite people themselves. Interestingly, there are indications that the Canaanites had a brownish skin tone, similar to that of their ancestor Ham. In some linguistic traditions, the Arabic term mu'alad is often used to describe this intermediate skin tone, reinforcing a possible historical connection between the peoples descended from Ham. The Canaanites and their cultural heirs, including the Phoenicians, were exceptional sailors and merchants. Their maritime skill enabled the dissemination of their culture, knowledge, and even their genetics across various regions of the Mediterranean. Through intense migrations, they reached Crete, where they interacted and mixed with Greeks, Romans, and other Indo-European peoples descended from Japheth. This fusion of lineages, cultures, and civilizations shaped the history of numerous ancient peoples and demonstrates the complexity of human interactions over the centuries. Thus, in contrast to simplistic interpretations based on curse or segregation, the trajectory of the descendants of Ham reveals a legacy of influence, adaptation, and resilience, leaving an indelible mark on the history of humanity. According to Genesis 10:15, Canaan had several sons, the eldest of whom was Sidon, from whom the Sidonians originated, the first inhabitants of the ancient city of Sidon. Although historically remembered as a distinct people, the Sidonians were, in fact, Canaanites, direct descendants of Canaan. Canaan's second son was Heth, the ancestor of the powerful Hittite people. Although often associated with other Middle Eastern civilizations, the Hittites have their roots in the Canaanite lineage, which highlights the complexity of connections between ancient peoples. In addition to the Sidonians and Hittites, Canaan was the ancestor of several other nations, including Jebusites, the founders of Jerusalem before the Israelite conquest; Amorites, one of the most influential peoples of Canaan, frequently mentioned in the Bible; Girgashites, a Canaanite tribe whose presence is recorded in the scriptures; Hivites, inhabitants of various regions, including Shechem and Gibeon. Arkites and Sinites, lesser-known peoples, possibly located in the northern part of Canaan. Arvadites, associated with the island of Arwad, an important Phoenician maritime center. Hamathites, inhabitants of the ancient city of Hamath, located in present-day Syria. Although each of these groups had its own cultural and linguistic identity, they were all interconnected by a common origin, forming the rich mosaic of the Canaanite tribes. Their influence spanned centuries, shaping the historical and geopolitical landscape of the region. It is important to highlight that the Canaanites were not Semitic, but rather Hamitic descendants of Ham, the son of Noah. This distinction is crucial for understanding the ethnic and cultural complexity of the ancient peoples. While the Semites descended from Shem, the Canaanites formed a distinct branch within the biblical genealogy, developing their own traditions, customs, and language systems. Each Canaanite tribe developed its own language, which, although having regional variations, retained strong similarities with other languages in the group. Their languages and dialects belonged to the Canaanite language family, which included Ancient Amorite, spoken by the Amorites, an influential people in Mesopotamia and Canaan. Early Phoenician, which later gave rise to Hebrew and Classical Phoenician, the basis of the modern alphabet. Ugaritic, used in the city-state of Ugarit, whose cuneiform writing revealed myths and religious texts essential for understanding Canaanite culture. Canaanite, the language spoken by the inhabitants of the Canaanite city-states. The influence of the Canaanite languages was deep and lasting, directly shaping the development of Hebrew and impacting other Middle Eastern languages. Thus, the descendants of Canaan not only spread geographically, but also left a linguistic and cultural legacy that resonated throughout history, influencing later civilizations and the structure of written communication in the region. The Canaanites were a deeply religious people, but their faith was centered around intense polytheism, in which they worshipped a wide range of deities and spirits. Many of these entities are mentioned in the Holy Scriptures, standing out for their cults and rituals, which often clashed with the monotheistic faith of the Hebrews. Among the main deities worshipped by the Canaanites were Baal, god of storms and fertility, often depicted as a bull, symbolizing strength and agricultural power. His cult was predominant in the region and frequently involved sacrifices and fertility rituals. Asherah, a mother goddess associated with fertility, worshipped in sacred groves and ritual altars. She was considered the consort of Baal and, in some traditions, linked to the Phoenician cult. Molech, one of the most feared deities, as his cult involved human sacrifices, especially children, as a way to obtain divine favor and prosperity. Dagon, god of the harvest and grains, widely worshipped by the Philistines and other peoples of the region. His temple in Gaza is mentioned in the Bible, especially in the story of Samson. Worship of these deities was not merely symbolic. The Canaanites practiced sorcery, necromancy, and human sacrifices, believing that such acts would guarantee them blessings, protection, and prosperity. These ceremonies often involved frenzied dances, self-mutilation, and even blood offerings. However, these so-called gods were nothing but unclean spirits in disguise, deceiving those who worshipped them in pursuit of power and material success. This spiritual conflict was one of the main reasons why the Hebrews were instructed to eradicate these practices and establish exclusive worship of the true God. The history of the Canaanites serves as a reminder of the danger of idolatry and spiritual deviation. Their customs and beliefs were severely condemned by God, who commanded the Israelites not to follow their ways. Thank you for watching the video until now. May God bless your life and always guide you in the truth. See you soon.